Hey guys, tonight we walk quietly under a pale moon, guided not by reason but by instinct, not by answers but by something far softer. A thick mist clings low along the riverbanks, veiling the world in ghostly silver. Lanterns sway from crooked bamboo poles, their dim glow barely cutting through the fog. You follow them, not with your feet, but with your attention. One step at a time, not knowing where they lead. Each light flickers like a question, a breath, a pause in the endless hum of your thoughts. You probably won't survive this journey, at least, not the version of you who arrived here with clenched fists and a crowded mind. That self might not make it to morning, but maybe that's the point. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Let me know in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is for you. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The river is quiet tonight, but not silent. Water brushes against stones like a whisper. The fog presses close, softening the world. The lanterns swing slightly in the breeze, as if they know something you don't. You step carefully along the damp path. The air smells of moss and cool stone. Somewhere nearby, a frog croaks once and then goes still. You pass under a twisted pine tree, its shadow stretching like a long arm into the mist. Then you see him. An old hermit sits cross-legged beside the river, robes the color of worn sand. He doesn't move as you approach. He seems as still as the rocks around him. A kettle hisses beside him, balanced impossibly on a single stone that juts from the riverbank. The smell of tea, earthy, sharp, mixes with the cool night air. He nods just once, not an invitation, not a greeting, simply recognition. You sit. Minutes pass, or hours. Time blurs. The fog doesn't lift, but your thoughts begin to settle like dust in calm water. Eventually, he speaks. You followed the light, he says. You nod, unsure if a reply is expected. It isn't. They always do, he continues. But they think the lanterns lead somewhere. A truth, a revelation, a prize. What if the lanterns are only showing you the fog? You want to speak, but what could you say that wouldn't sound like explanation or defense? So, you say nothing. The hermit stirs the fire. Sparks leap into the air and vanish. Most people come to this river carrying something. A burden, a name, a regret, something they call mine. But the river doesn't care. He looks at you now, directly. His eyes aren't wise or kind. They're clear, empty in the way sky is empty. Not hollow, just open. What are you carrying? He asks. You start to speak, maybe to say something about stress or loss, or just being tired of the noise. But he holds up a single finger, not as a warning, but as punctuation. Don't answer with words. Put it in your hands. Hold it, feel it. You close your eyes. At first, there's nothing. Just the dark behind your lids and the rustle of river reeds. Then, slowly, you feel it, something heavy, but shapeless. It's made of expectations, of memories you can't change, of mistakes and hopes, and the strange weight of needing to prove yourself. You feel it settle in your hands. Good, the hermit whispers, as if reading your mind. Now watch. And you do. The weight doesn't disappear. It doesn't float away or turn into light. It just begins to change. Maybe you're letting it change. It becomes less dense, less solid. The shape breaks apart, like steam rising from a hot cup on a cold morning. When you open your eyes, your hands are empty, and the hermit is smiling, not with his mouth, but with the calm that surrounds him. "The lanterns only show you what you're ready to see," he says. You look back along the path you came from. The lanterns are still there, but dimmer now. You didn't even realize they were fading. You don't need them anymore. He pours a cup of tea and offers it silently. You take it. It's bitter and perfect. There is no more talking. The fire burns low, the mist thickens again. But it doesn't feel like a barrier now, just another kind of silence. When you stand to leave, the hermit doesn't stop you. But before you step back onto the path, he says one last thing. Let the river carry what you don't need, but don't ask it where it goes. It's not your business where peace comes from, only that it comes. And so you walk on, not toward a truth, not away from a mistake, just forward. The lanterns are gone now, but you don't feel lost. The river is still whispering. You walk with no need for light now. The river, though it no longer runs beside you, has etched its rhythm somewhere inside. Your steps fall into it. The world is still soaked in fog, but the silence no longer presses in. It breathes with you. A clearing opens. A small structure appears. Timber, tiled roof, and a crooked wooden sign hanging loose by one nail. You can't read the script, but you don't need to. It is the kind of place that offers no service, yet gives something back anyway. Inside, it smells of straw mats, faint sandalwood, and wood worn smooth by years of hands. A low table sits in the center, holding a single empty bowl. No one is here, or so you think. Then a door slides open with the sound of dry leaves brushing against stone. A Zen master steps in, his robe simple, sleeves rolled, hands empty. His gaze is sharp but not unkind. He gestures to the bowl. You look hungry, he says. You hesitate, not knowing the ritual. He picks up the bowl, shows it to you, turns it upside down. Nothing inside. Like your mind, he says. He places it before you. Tell me, he continues, what can I serve into a bowl that's already full? You start to answer, some reflexive apology or explanation forming in your throat. But the master lifts a hand, an echo of the hermit by the river. Words are easy to carry, he says, but harder to drop. You feel the flush of embarrassment rising. You're not sure why. Maybe because you realize you've walked in here full of seeking, of old knowledge, of expectations, ideas, beliefs. Even emptiness, if clung to, becomes just another thing. The master kneels. He produces a steaming kettle and 2 cups. Pours one for himself, one for you. Then he sets the kettle aside and waits. You hold the cup. Steam curls upward like breath on a cold morning. He doesn't sip. He watches you. You try to drink, but your hand hesitates. The tea smells strong, sharp, unapologetic. You meet his eyes. I don't know what I'm supposed to do, you say. His lips twitch. Not quite a smile, not quite mockery. Exactly, he replies. You don't drink. You place the cup down. The silence expands again. Not awkward. Just wide enough to fit something real. He reaches over and tips your cup. The tea spills onto the mat. Now the cup is empty. Better, he says, and then softly he begins to pour again. This time, the scent is different, mild, earthy, sweet. When you raise the cup, it's not hesitation that halts your hand, but awe. It tastes simple, but behind the simplicity is a quiet roar of something deep, humble, alive. You didn't expect to feel it in tea. You came here with your bowl already full. The master says, but not with food, with questions, with thoughts. with hunger pretending to be knowing. He sips from his own cup. To learn, you must become again like this bowl, empty not by accident, but by intention. You hear it again, the echo of the river, of the lanterns, of the hermit's final words. Let it go, let it flow. The master stands. He picks up the spilled tea cloth, cleans the mat, and places the bowl back in the center of the table. He gestures toward it one last time. This is your life, he says. Every day you fill it with anger, with opinions, with fear, sometimes with love. But you never stop pouring. You forget to drink. You watch the bowl, still empty. What if, he asks. Today you simply leave it empty. He bows to you then, deeply, as if your silence has become your first real answer. When you leave the little structure, nothing has changed, but everything has changed. You feel the weight of what you no longer carry, and the curious lightness of not needing to hold more. The sky is brighter now, though the sun is still hiding behind layers of silver cloud. Morning stirs gently in the woods ahead. Birdsong breaks the hush, tentative and sparse, like a string plucked once and left to resonate. You walk with no need to hurry, carrying nothing but the awareness of each step, its rise, its fall, its whisper against the earth. The path narrows and forks, one trail swallowed by thickets, the other worn thin with time. You take the worn one. Dust clings to your sandals as you descend into a small, forgotten village. The houses are wooden and low, some with paper windows fluttering in the breeze. Old stone walls lean like tired elders. It feels as though the village itself is exiling, not quite awake, not quite asleep. No one is around, yet the place does not feel abandoned. It feels paused, waiting for something that doesn't need to come. You notice faint impressions in the dust, bare feet, broad, slow steps. They trace a path that meanders between the houses and out again, always looping back. Footprints. They are not deep, not urgent, just there. Quiet marks of someone who once walked this way, not to get anywhere, but simply to be. You follow them. They lead you past a shrine so old its inscriptions have been worn smooth by rain. Past a well with a broken pulley. Past a cherry tree that has not yet bloomed, though it is spring. Finally, they stop. A smooth, flat stone sits beneath a twisted pine. On it rests an old wooden walking stick. Nothing else. A voice rises behind you, soft but certain. He never said a word. You turn. An old woman stands in the doorway of a small home. Her face is mapped with time. Her hands clasped before her like she's still in prayer. She walks toward you slowly. The monk, she says, he came here many years ago. Never asked for food. Never gave a teaching. Just walked. She points to the footprints. Every morning, before dawn, one loop through the village. Then he'd sit under that tree until dusk. Then walk again. You glance at the stone. Did anyone speak to him? She shakes her head. Some tried, but he'd only bow or smile. Never spoke. You wait, sensing there's more. She smiles faintly. One day a child tried to give him a rice ball. He placed it on the ground in front of him. The monk picked it up, bowed to the child, and placed it back where it had been. Why, you ask? She shrugs. No one knows. But the next day, all the children in the village brought him offerings. Some food, some flowers. One even gave him a small drawing. He never kept anything, but he always bowed, always returned it, always smiled. You sit on the stone where the monk once sat. The walking stick rests beside you, carved from cedar, smooth with age. The woman joins you on the ground. We watched him for months. Then one day he was gone. No goodbye. No trace. Just gone. You notice now the footprints are old. They haven't been walked in seasons. Yet somehow they remain. Maybe because no one has dared to step over them. Or maybe because some impressions are too deep to fade. You ask, what did people learn from him? She closes her eyes. To be still, she says. To be kind without needing to speak. To walk with awareness. The children changed first. Then the rest of us followed. She opens her eyes again. You don't always need to say something to teach, she adds. Sometimes walking gently is the loudest lesson. A rooster crows in the distance. Somewhere, a pot lid clangs. The village is waking. You thank her, bowing low. She bows back, then smiles and walks away without another word. You rise, and without deciding to, you begin to walk the loop, just once, past the shrine, past the well, past the tree. You place each foot where his once fell, not exactly, but close, not to imitate, but to remember. To embody the silence that left footprints where words would have washed away. When you leave the village, the dust of his steps still clings faintly to yours. But more than that, you carry the memory of a man who taught through walking. And you wonder, how many others are teaching in silence, all around you right now? The air changes as you climb again, rising from the lowlands into steeper terrain. The trail grows narrow and damp. Moss climbs tree trunks like slow green fire. You walk alone, yet not alone. Your breath seems to echo slightly now, as if the mountain itself were breathing with you. Then, around a bend, you find it a tea house balanced on a ledge of stone, half swallowed by vines. The wood is darkened with age, the roof sagging slightly in the middle, but smoke curls from a pipe in the back, and a wooden sign hangs asks you above the entrance, quiet tea, loud world. A bell rings when you slide the door open. Inside, there are no customers, just a kettle already singing on the hearth, and a figure crouched low behind the counter, tending a row of earthen cups. The tea house keeper is old and small, with wiry hair and an expression that hovers somewhere between bemused and annoyed. She doesn't greet you. She doesn't need to. You sit. A cup appears before you. Steam rises. The tea is pale gold, almost clear. You lift it, bow slightly, and take a sip. It burns your tongue. You wince. She notices. Of course she does. You were in a hurry, she says, not accusing, just noticing. Tea's ready. You're not. You set the cup down, humbled. The tea house hums with warmth, the low crackle of fire and distant chirp of unseen birds. The smell is a mix of charred wood and old leaves. You inhale deeply. This is not the kind of place where someone explains a lesson. This is where the lesson waits for you to become still enough to hear it. She sits across from you now, one hand on the edge of the table, the other tracing the rim of her own cup. I had a customer once, she says, who complained the tea was always too cold. I asked him how long he waited before tasting it. She sips, then chuckles. He said, just enough for it to stop burning. So I told him, maybe the problem is, you don't like it warm. You only like it when it's not bothering you. You nod slowly, beginning to understand. She leans forward. That's how most people are with the present moment, she says. They only want it when it stops being hot, or cold, or sharp, or messy. You look down at your cup. The steam has faded. You sip again, still hot, but gentler now. I used to hate mornings, she says, out of nowhere. Too much light. Too many birds. Too many people wanting something. I'd curse the sun in my head. Her voice lowers. Then I realize the sun wasn't the one shouting. She taps her own chest lightly. It was me. I was the noise. You don't speak. You just watch her sip again, then close her eyes for a moment. The world is loud, she says. But mostly because you won't stop clenching inside your own head. You shift slightly in your seat. She notices again. You're doing it now, she says. Thinking, planning, reacting. Your cup is already full. Remember, the memory of the Zen master and the empty bowl returns. You place both hands around your cup and just hold it. Not rushing, not resisting. Just letting it be exactly what it is. You sip. This time, it's perfect. Not because the temperature changed, but because you did. The tea house keeper smiles for the first time. There, she says. Know you're drinking tea. Outside, the wind stirs the vines on the wall. Leaves brush the paper windows. You sit in silence for a while. You don't count the minutes. There's nothing to be late for. Nowhere better to be. Before you leave, she walks you to the door. She hands you a second cup, small, ceramic, slightly chipped. For when you forget, she says. You bow low. She doesn't bow back. She just closes the door behind you with a soft thunk, as if sealing the lesson into your bones. Back on the trail, you carry the cup in both hands, not afraid it will break, but aware that it could. And somehow, that makes it more beautiful. The cup rides quietly in your hands as you descend from the mountain tea house. With every step, it tilts slightly, water from last night's rain pooling along the rim. You're careful not to spill, not out of fear, but out of reverence, for the silence it now holds. Soon the path becomes less defined. Stone gives way to soft earth, lined with ferns and low brush. Your pace slows as the sound of the wind begins to grow, not loud, but present, insistent. Like a breath you'd forgotten to take, you emerge into a bamboo grove. The stalks tower high, straight-backed and proud, yet swaying like dancers. A soft green glow radiates from within, the way morning light filters through closed eyelids. The wind snakes between the stalks, stirring a whisper that surrounds you from every direction. You stop. You listen. Each rustle seems to say something, but not in words, more like vibrations, like the body being spoken to, not the mind. There is someone sitting at the center of the grove. A monk clothed in brown robes that blend into the dirt and the bark. His eyes are closed. His hands rest palm up on his knees. He does not flinch as the wind brushes his face, does not blink when a leaf spirals down beside him. You do not speak. You sit. The wind moves again. The bamboo sighs. He opens his eyes. They meet yours, and he nods, not in greeting, but in acknowledgement, like the river hermit and the tea master before him. You are seen. He does not speak. Instead, he turns his head slightly and closes his eyes again, as if inviting you to follow. You do. There's no instruction, no mantra, no bell to mark a beginning, just breath, wind, and the slow, rhythmic groaning of the bamboo, creaking with time but never breaking. Minutes pass. Your mind tries to fill the space. What am I supposed to be doing? It asks. Is he teaching something? Should I try to understand? And then the wind rises. The bamboo groans louder. Something inside you stills, not because you found an answer, but because the question just falls away. The monk speaks one sentence. No tree complains about the wind. Then silence again. You breathe that in. You realize you've spent most of your life pushing against wind, fighting discomfort, resisting uncertainty, stiffening against change. But here in this grove, nothing resists. The bamboo sways, the leaves fall, the monk breathes. And now, so do you. He opens his eyes again, looks at you, speaks once more. To be soft is not to be weak. You nod slowly. He's not giving you a metaphor. He's offering a way of being, a truth you can live. You notice the bamboo stalks, tall, slender, but strong. They bend but never snap. When storms come, they bow. When sunlight returns, they rise. There is power in yielding. The monk rises. He moves with a quiet grace, like water flowing uphill. He steps between the stalks, his path invisible, yet certain. You follow. He leads you deeper into the grove, where the wind thickens and the light thins. The world narrows to the sound of rustling leaves and the soft pad of your steps. Then he stops. In front of you is a single stalk, split cleanly down the middle, hollow, empty. He gestures to it.
"What do you see?" he asks.
You think. "It's broken," you say. He shakes his head. "It's open." You look again. The bamboo isn't ruined. It's revealing something. Its strength was not in hiding its core, but in being honest about its hollowness. You reach out and touch it. Inside, it's smooth, cool, echoing. A flute, you realize, if breath passed through it, it would sing. The monk smiles faintly. Emptiness is not lack. It is readiness. You let that settle. He gestures to the path again. The wind has softened now. The grove no longer feels like a place you are passing through. It feels like a part of you. As you leave, you bow to him. He bows back, but not as a farewell, more like a mirror, a closing loop. You step beyond the final stalks, back onto the mountain path, the wind now behind you. And in your chest, a new kind of openness begins to stir, silent, spacious, and ready to be filled by nothing but the present moment. The trail narrows and turns rocky as the bamboo grove fades into the distance. The wind lingers only as a hum in your ears, like a dream trying to remember itself. You walk alone again. Though the solitude no longer feels empty, it feels earned. Eventually, the path flattens. The trees thin out, and you arrive at a plateau scattered with stones, bleached by sun and time. A small temple rests at the far end, its wooden gate worn smooth by 1,000 open and close cycles. You approach cautiously, though the air feels still, too still. The gate is ajar, no locks, no latch, just open. Inside, it's sparse clean, one long bench, a low altar, a wall scroll with no writing, only a brushstroke that arcs like a falling feather. You hear movement. A figure steps from the shadows at the edge of the temple, robes dark, face lined, eyes curious but not surprised. He doesn't greet you. Instead, he kneels by the altar and begins lighting a single stick of incense. His movements are methodical, almost mechanical. You sit quietly. Wait. Then the silence breaks, not by a bell, but by a sudden clatter. You both turn. At the edge of the open gate, a man stands, wild-eyed, barefoot, his clothes torn and dirty. A sack hangs at his hip, bulging with stolen things, coins, trinkets, a copper ladle. A thief. He steps cautiously into the temple. The monk doesn't move. The thief eyes you both, unsure whether to run or demand something. "What's in the sack?" the monk asks, voice calm as still water. The thief flinches, then defiant says, "Mine." The monk nods. "Of course." The thief blinks. This was not the reaction he expected. "I've come to take what I want," he says. The monk rises and walks toward the altar. He removes a cloth bundle from beneath it, a small loaf of bread and an old, folded blanket. He offers them. The thief hesitates. "You're just giving it." The monk shrugs. "You came to take. I have nothing worth stealing. But I do have these." You watch as the thief slowly reaches out, takes the bundle, and backs away to a corner, confused. The monk returns to his incense. Then softly, almost too softly, he speaks. "You think you broke into this place, but there is no lock." The thief frowns. "Everywhere has a lock." "No," the monk replies. "Only where something is being held." That settles into the room like mist. The thief sits on the floor, unsure. He picks apart the bread, not eating it, just watching crumbs fall between his fingers. You speak before you realize it. Why give it to him? The monk looks at you. His gaze isn't warm or cold, it's still, because it costs nothing, and because he has never been given anything without being expected to pay. He gestures to the thief. To steal is to say, "No one will give me what I need unless I take it." It's not greed. It's despair. You look again at the man in the corner. His shoulders are slumped, his eyes lowered. The sack now rests beside him, forgotten. The monk continues. "Locks don't keep people out, they keep fear in. When we stop fearing loss, there is nothing left to lock." The thief whispers something. You lean in, but it's the monk who responds. "Yes," he says, "you can stay." The thief begins to cry, not loudly. Just a slow, shaking breath that releases something too heavy to name. You want to speak again, but instead, you just listen to him, to the monk, to the silence between. That night, the three of you sit in the unlocked temple as moonlight spills through the open gate. No one guards anything. No one hides anything. The monk brews a bitter tea, and even the thief drinks without fear of poison or shame. You realize then, some places are protected not by walls, but by welcome, by the absence of threat, by the kind of emptiness that refuses to hoard. You sleep near the altar, wrapped in quiet, the faint scent of incense curling through your dreams. And when you wake, the gate is still open. The gate swings gently in the morning breeze, creaking like a reminder that nothing was ever really closed. You rise quietly, careful not to wake the thief, who now sleeps curled on the bench, blanket tucked beneath his chin like a child who has finally been told he is safe. The monk is already gone. Only the scent of ash and a fresh cup of tea remain, placed precisely where you sat the night before. You bow in thanks, though no one sees it, and step outside. The trail stretches on ahead, curling into the hills like a ribbon dropped by the wind. The air is clearer now, sharper. It carries a hint of coming rain, though the sky is still pale and blue. By midday, clouds gather, so does the sound. First, a faint whistle. Then the whistle becomes a hiss, and the hiss becomes thunder, not from the sky, but from the earth itself. You crest a hill and see it a clearing strewn with arrows. Thousands. They pierce the earth like silvered grass, some broken, some buried, some still gleaming with deadly intent. In the center stands an old man, shirtless, lean as a tree root, his skin weathered and scarred. His back is to you, and he is barefoot, standing amid the arrows as if in meditation. He turns as you approach, a warrior, or what once was one. You bow. He doesn't return it. Instead, he gestures to the arrows scattered at your feet. "These were mine," he says. "All 10,000. You blink. He nods slowly. "Every time I hated someone, I carved an arrow. Every time I plotted revenge, I sharpened it. Every time I felt wronged, I loosed one into the world, or myself. You look again. The sheer volume is overwhelming. He walks forward and lifts a broken arrow. I was the finest archer in 3 provinces. Could split a reed from 30 paces. I even taught lords how to kill with elegance. He laughs bitterly. But none of them taught me how to put the bow down. He crouches beside a large, moss-covered stone and places the arrow gently beside it, like an offering. Until one day, I came home and found my son holding my bow. He aimed it at a tree. I stopped him. He said he wanted to be strong, like me. His voice falters for a moment. I realized then strength is not in how you shoot. It's in whether you must. You sit beside him now. The clearing hums with wind and memory. I came here, he says, and began to unlearn. Every day, I dig up an old arrow and break it. Some days I made more progress. Some days I found myself carving new ones in my mind. But slowly, he gestures to the field. They became this. The broken pieces are not sad. They are offerings. Confessions. The debris of a life once ruled by fire now cooled to ash. People think peace is something soft, he says. But there's nothing harder than forgiveness. Nothing more courageous than putting down what you've carried for decades. He stands again. Do you carry weapons? You want to say no, but in your chest, you feel them. Words you've held like daggers. Memories you've turned into spears, grudges sharpened in the dark. You say nothing. The old warrior walks to the edge of the clearing and returns with a single arrow, unbroken. He hands it to you. You don't have to destroy it. Just choose not to fire it. You hold it. It's surprisingly light. But you feel the weight of what it could do. You walk to the mossy stone. You place the arrow beside it. No need to break it. No need to fight it. Just leave it. The old man smiles. Then, without another word, he walks into the trees, disappearing between shafts of light. You look once more at the clearing. 10,000 arrows. Each one a story, each one a surrender. You don't take any with you. Instead, you walk away with something new. Not a weapon, a vow. The forest grows dense again, but this time it feels different. As if it too has laid something down. The trees no longer press inward, and even the shadows seem to breathe more easily. There is a rhythm to your steps now, not urgent, not aimless. A quiet pulse that matches the wind in the leaves. You pass a crumbling stone marker with no inscription, just a groove worn smooth from the hands of countless passers-by. The path curves uphill. You climb. Eventually, the trees fall away, and a wide plateau opens before you. At its center stands a monastery, modest, square, and perfectly silent. The walls are bare wood, the roof slate, grey. There are no monks sweeping, no novices chanting, no incense curling through the air. Only silence. You step forward. The main hall door is open. Inside, stillness. There is no icon, no statue, no bell. Just a long room with a single cushion in the center. On it, facing the wall, sits a man in dark robes. You pause in the doorway, unsure if you're allowed to enter. He speaks before you say anything. You can sit or not. The voice is flat, neither welcoming nor cold. You sit, no instructions, no explanations. He does not turn around. You glance at the walls. They are bare, save for one small wooden plaque above the threshold that reads simply enough. You wait. He does not move. Eventually, you whisper, "What is the teaching?" He does not answer. Minutes pass, or hours. Your legs ache. Your mind drifts. You try to focus on your breath, but it dances away. You begin to list things you want to ask. About suffering, about stillness, about how to live, about how to stop the noise inside your head. Still, he does not speak. The silence grows so thick it becomes a sound. The creak of your bones, the pulse in your ears, the soft throb of your own resistance. You almost leave, but something keeps you there. Then, without turning, he says, "Are you uncomfortable?" You hesitate, then nod.
Yes.
Good.
He says, "You're still alive." You frown. He adds, "Now stop trying to fix it." You blink. Then the silence comes back. But it doesn't sting now. It settles. Like dust after a storm. You realize something. Your discomfort isn't the problem. Your fight against it is. He shifts slightly. Most students ask for peace, he says. But what they want is anesthesia. You let the words echo. You think Zen is comfort, he continues. But it's clarity. Sometimes clarity hurts. He finally turns. His face is lined but not wary. His eyes don't pierce. They accept. They reflect. They don't hold answers. They return your gaze with a question. Set, he says, until there is nothing left to chase. You sit straighter. The pain in your legs hasn't vanished. The buzzing in your thoughts hasn't dissolved. But something has softened. The part of you that always wants to reach, to grasp, to solve, it's quieter now. He closes his eyes again. You follow. A long silence falls. But this one feels earned. Inside it you hear things, not words, just space. The first space in days that doesn't demand something from you. When you finally rise, he does not open his eyes. He simply says, "Take the silence with you." You bow. He does not bow back. He has already returned to the stillness. Outside, the world feels louder. Birds, the crunch of your own footsteps. But beneath all that, something remains. A hum, a silence that no longer needs a monastery to exist, because it has taken root somewhere deeper, inside you. You descend from the plateau with silence trailing behind you like a second shadow. It doesn't cling, it walks beside you, calm, observant, unshaken. The world no longer feels loud. Not because it's changed, but because you're listening differently. You're no longer chasing silence. You're carrying it. As the trail curves through a cluster of black pines, you begin to smell smoke. Not the sharp, acrid kind of destruction, but something older, sadder. The scent of what's been reduced to ash. You emerge onto a field that has clearly burned. Charred soil spreads out before you, cracked and still faintly steaming. A few skeletal branches jut up from the earth like broken fingers. The land looks as though it once held something, a garden, maybe, crops, flowers. But now it is scorched. In the distance, one figure moves slowly through the smoke. You approach. She is crouched, hood drawn low, face shadowed. Her hands are blackened not from fire but from soil. Around her, small holes dot the field. In each, she places a single seed. She looks up as you arrive. No fear, no surprise. "Didn't bring rain, did you?" she asks. Without malice. You shake your head. "Didn't think so," she murmurs. You glance around. "What happened?" "Lightning," she replies. "Or maybe time, maybe carelessness. Doesn't matter." It burned. You watch her press another seed into the dirt. But you're planting again. She sits back on her heels. "What else would I do? Grieve forever." The wind picks up, stirring the ash into low spirals. "I used to grow wildflowers here," she says. "For funerals, for births, for travelers. You ask softly, and now? She gestures to the blackened earth. Now I plant because this is where I am. Ash is fertile, you know. You crouch beside her. Do you want help? She shrugs. If you know how to let things go, sure. If you're still trying to fix them, maybe just watch. You take a handful of seeds. She doesn't explain what they are. Doesn't need to. You press your fingers into the warm earth. It gives way. You plant, not with hope, not with expectations, just presence. She works silently beside you, her rhythm steady. Occasionally she hums, a tune with no words, like something remembered from childhood. After some time, you sit back. Your hands are streaked with soot and soil. The smoke has settled now. The field is quiet, still black, but not empty. You ask her, how do you know it's worth it? She looks at you for a long moment. Because it isn't about knowing, she says. It's about not leaving the ground behind just because it hurt you. You sit with that. Then she adds, almost absently, things bloom again. Not because we believe, but because we return. A breeze flows through the field. A single yellow leaf tumbles across the soil, like a small reminder that life still moves, even when we stop watching. She stands, brushes off her robes. Most people wait until life looks beautiful before they love it again, she says. But Zen doesn't wait. She looks at you fully now. Can you love this, even now? You don't answer, but you think yes. Maybe for the first time. She walks away without farewell, disappearing behind a low ridge. Her humming fades, but doesn't vanish. It settles into the field like water into dry cracks. You look at the patch of earth before you. Your seeds are still invisible, but you feel them there. And for now, that is enough. You rise and leave the field behind, not in grief, not in regret, but in trust. Trust that something has already begun. The air is lighter as you leave the burned field, though the scent of smoke still clings faintly to your clothes. The ground beneath your feet turns softer, and the sky above opens wider than it has in days. The silence from the monastery still hums in your chest, and now it's joined by the weightless promise of seeds, unseen beneath ash. You follow a winding path downhill toward a quiet village by the edge of a lake. The rooftops here are curved like smiles, and faint wisps of cooking smoke curl lazily from chimneys. There's the distant clink of teacups and the rhythmic sweep of a broom. Life continuing. In the heart of the village sits a small wooden hall with a scroll hanging beside the door. On it, 2 brush strokes, deliberate, uneven, one straight and bold, the other curved and hesitant. It looks like a mistake. You step inside. The room is dim and warm. Tatami mats cover the floor, and dozens of calligraphy scrolls line the walls. Some perfect, some wild, some oddly shaped, each one signed in the same corner with the same red seal. A man sits at a low desk in the back, grinding ink slowly on a stone slab. His robes are faded, sleeves rolled. His eyes lift as you approach, but he doesn't speak. He simply lifts a sheet of blank rice paper and sets it before him. Then, with a single breath, he picks up his brush. He draws one bold stroke, sharp and straight, then another. This one falters, the curve stutters, the bristles catch, a blot of ink blooms unexpectedly. He exhales, frowns. You watch. Then, instead of discarding the paper, he leans back and studies it for a long time. You break the silence. Will you throw it away? He looks up. Why would I? It's flawed, you say, pointing gently to the blot. He chuckles. Is it? He turns the page slightly. Look again. What if that is the truth of the moment? Not the failure of it. You pause. But it wasn't what you meant to do. He nods. Exactly. He lifts another paper, shows you an older work. The lines are perfect, symmetrical, breathtaking. I made this when I was trying to impress someone, he says. It took me 20 attempts. Not a breath of error. Then he lifts the one with the blot again. This I made while listening to the rain. He places both side by side. You tell me, who was I in each of these? You look again. The perfect one feels distant, controlled. The flawed one feels alive. He sets the papers aside and pours tea into 2 cups. You're not your mistakes, he says. But neither are you your perfections. He sips, then adds, you are what remains when you stop trying to be either. You nod, remembering the empty bowl, the soft wind in the bamboo, the scattered arrows in the earth. He gestures to the brush. Want to try? You hesitate, then nod. He lays a fresh sheet down before you, hands you the brush. You lift it. Your hand shakes slightly. The stroke comes out crooked, wobbly. A drop of ink falls where it shouldn't. You flinch. But he only smiles. Good. You glance at him. You didn't try to control it, he says. You let it happen. That's where Zen lives. He gestures to the mistake, not in the symmetry, in the truth. You place the brush down. Something inside you breathes out. You look at the page. It's not beautiful. It's not precise, but it's honest. And somehow, that's more than enough. He offers you a stamp, the red seal that marks each piece. You press it into the corner, a mark of completion, not perfection. A statement that says, I was here. This happened. Let it be enough. When you leave the calligrapher's hall, the ink still stains your fingers. But it doesn't feel like a mark of error. It feels like a signature of someone learning to let go. You walk from the calligrapher's hall with your hands still smudged, your breath steady, and your steps softer than they were this morning. The sun has begun to lean toward the horizon now, the light turning amber, brushing the tops of trees with fire. You feel as though you're leaving something behind with every step, some invisible weight that no longer clings to you. The path curves along a hillside and brings you to a wide terrace overlooking a valley. A wooden gate marks the entrance to a sparse temple ground, and beneath it sits a young novice monk, no older than 15, tossing small stones into a pond. He glances up at you, squints against the light, then returns to his game. Plink, another pebble drops. You step closer, drawn by the rhythm. What are you doing? You ask. He shrugs, trying to hit the moon. You follow his gaze and see it. The faint reflection of the moon beginning to appear in the still surface of the pond. I haven't hit it yet, he says, but the ripples are nice. You sit beside him. The pond is small, round, perfectly still until he disturbs it. Each pebble makes a splash. Then a widening ring that breaks the moon's reflection into fragments, then slowly lets it return. He offers you a stone. You hold it in your palm. Don't aim, he says. Just drop it. You do. Plink. The ripples spread. The moon wavers, then reassembles. See, he says, no matter what you do. The moon comes back. You both sit in silence for a while, just watching the dance between stillness and disturbance. Then he speaks again. I used to think I needed to keep everything calm, like perfectly calm. But the more I tried, the more I messed it up. He throws another stone, a little harder this time. Big splash, big ripple. But when I let go, he continues, and just let the water move the way it wants. It always settles. You nod. He smiles. People are like ponds. Thoughts are like stones. You pick up another pebble. But what about the big ones? You ask. The sharp ones. He picks up a jagged stone, holds it up to the fading light, then drops it in. Plunk. A deeper ripple this time. A little longer to settle. But still, he says, pointing. There it goes. The water smooths. The moon returns. He leans back on his elbows. When I first got here, I thought Zen was about not thinking, not feeling, like be blank. But the master said that's not it. You glance over. Then what is it? He grins. It's knowing that the ripples aren't wrong. They're just part of it. You lie back beside him, letting the scent of pine drift over you. The sky is deepening now. The first stars emerge, shy and quiet. A breeze touches the pond. A new ripple forms, not from a stone, but from the air itself. You don't flinch. You don't try to still it. You just watch. The moon wavers, then returns. Do you ever worry it won't come back? You ask. The boy shrugs. I used to. He points to his chest. But it's not just there in the pond. It's in here too. Even when I can't see it. You close your eyes. You see it too. That quiet, glowing presence. Always there beneath the ripples, not disturbed, just waiting. He sits up and tosses one last stone. The rings spread out until they almost touch the far bank, then dissolve. He yawns. I'm going inside, he says. You can stay if you want. The pond likes company. He bows quickly and disappears into the dim temple hall. You remain. The moon glows fully now. Steady in the sky, steady in the water. You don't throw any more stones. You don't need to, because even in stillness, you've learned something precious, not to fear the ripple, not to chase the calm, but to trust what's beneath both. The moonlight follows you as you leave the pond behind. Its glow bathes the path in silver, casting long shadows of pine branches that sway gently above your head. The boy's words echo in your chest. The ripples aren't wrong. You carry them like a soft mantra, like a hand on your back, urging you forward with quiet assurance. The trail narrows again and descends into a quiet village nestled between hills. A few lanterns burn low. Doors are closed. All is still until a faint sound catches your ear. Laughter, not loud, not boisterous, but clean, steady, like water tumbling over smooth stones. You follow it. It leads you to a small garden behind an old hut. There, under a tree heavy with fragrant blossoms, sits a man. His clothes are simple, his beard white, his eyes closed. He rocks slightly as he laughs, not at anything, not with anyone, just laughs. You wait unsure. Finally, he opens one eye and looks at you. Couldn't sleep either. He asks, grinning. You shake your head. He gestures to the grass beside him. You sit. He leans back against the tree. They call me the man who never sleeps, he says. Silly name. I sleep plenty. Just not when others expect. You glance around. Why are you laughing? He shrugs. Why not? There's no tension in him. No need to explain. No need to convince. He laughs again, lightly, like a breeze playing with loose petals. People come here looking for answers, he says. I give them tea and a nap mat. You smile. He doesn't ask who you are, doesn't ask where you've been. He simply plucks a blossom from the tree and holds it up between you. This, he says, is a cone. You raise an eyebrow. He chuckles. Not the blossom itself. Your reaction to it. You stare at it. Pink. Soft, unremarkable. What am I supposed to do with it? You ask. Exactly, he replies. You frown, puzzled. He lays the flower on your palm. Zen isn't about solving, he says. It's about seeing. You look again. It's just a flower, and also not just a flower. The way it caught the moonlight. The way it landed perfectly in your hand. The way your mind reached to assign meaning, to label, to define, and how it failed softly. He watches your face. There, he says. You just missed it. Missed what? The moment. But don't worry, it'll come again. You both sit for a while. Then he leans closer. You want to know why I laugh? You nod. He taps his chest. Because everything I was afraid of turned out to be made of paper. You look confused. He explains. Fear of failure, fear of shame, fear of being nothing. I held them up to the light one day and realized they weren't real. Just folded thoughts. Paper dragons. He chuckles again. I used to chase peace like a wild dog. Now it follows me like a cat I forgot to feed. You laugh softly despite yourself. He smiles. No need to chase silence or sleep or stillness. Just make room. They'll come when they're ready. You lie back in the grass, looking up through the tree. The stars peer down like quiet spectators. The wind stirs. You close your eyes. You feel your breath. You feel the night pressing in, not as a threat, but as a blanket. And you understand, for a fleeting second, what he means. Peace isn't something you find. It's something that finds you. When you finally stop hiding from it, you open your eyes. He's already standing. You'll sleep well tonight, he says, even if your body doesn't. He walks slowly back to his hut, doesn't turn around, doesn't say goodbye. He doesn't need to. You remain beneath the tree until dawn begins to color the sky with the faintest streaks of blue. You don't remember falling asleep, but when you wake, the blossom is still in your hand. You rise before the village does, before the birds begin their morning call, and the sky fully stretches open. The blossom still rests in your palm, slightly wilted but soft. You place it beside the tree, not as an offering, but as a thank you, a quiet mark of passage. The road calls again, and this time you answer it without hesitation. There's no expectation, no search, just motion, just presence. As you climb through a narrow pass between cliffs, a strange sound catches your attention. Metal striking rock, repeating. You follow it, heart light. It leads to a solitary figure at the edge of the cliff, a man hammering something against a boulder. As you approach, you see it clearly not metal, but stone. He's tapping one rock against another. He pauses and looks at you. You're not the wind, he says. Good. You sit nearby, curious. What are you doing? You ask. Trying to float this rock. You glance at the boulder beneath his hand. It's huge, moss-covered, grounded, unmoving. You wait for the joke, but he's not smiling. He taps it again. Tap, tap. Silence. You finally ask, why float a rock? He shrugs. Why not? You laugh gently. But it's impossible. His eyes meet yours. Eyes it. He stands and brushes his hands on his robe. Come. He leads you down a narrow path that winds between rocks slick with dew. Eventually, you reach a small cove, where waves lap gently against a stony shore. A wooden boat floats in the shallows, tied loosely to a post. He points. In there, he says. You step into the boat. He joins you, pushes off with his foot, and lets the current carry you both. The boat drifts slowly. The man reaches into his robe and pulls out a small stone, worn smooth, no bigger than a plum. He drops it overboard, plunk, ripples, then silence. You watch the ripples fade. He says, "Some people think rocks sink because they're heavy, but they sink because they won't let go." You blink. Let go of what? Of shape, of solidity, of what they believe they are. He leans back, watching the clouds shift above. "You are not your edges," he says. "You are not your history. You are not the story you tell to keep from dissolving." You sit with that. He continues, "I once believed I was carved in stone. My anger,
My pride, my silence.
but when I placed myself in the water of practice, of sitting, of seeing, it softened me." He reaches over the boat's side and scoops a handful of water. "Now I float, not above suffering, just with it." You close your eyes, feel the boat drift, no oars, no rudder, just wind, just water. "What about the rock on the cliff?" you ask. He smiles, still trying, still tapping. You open your eyes. Is that hope? He chuckles. Maybe foolishness, or love. You drift in silence for a while. Then he says, "You don't need to float all at once. You just need to stop clinging." You let your fingers dangle in the water. It's cold, clean. You imagine the edges of yourself softening, your plans, your guilt, your need to be right. The boat doesn't rock much. It trusts the water. You begin to trust too. The man reaches for the rope. As he pulls you back toward shore, he adds quietly, "Sometimes the heaviest part of you isn't the past. It's the idea that you can't change." You step out of the boat. He waves once and begins walking back up the hill, tapping a rock absently against the side of the cliff. Tap, tap, tap. You walk away without needing him to stop. Whether the rock ever floats no longer matters. The sound of tapping fades behind you, swallowed by wind and distance. You descend the hillside slowly, each step wrapped in a kind of ease you didn't possess before. You're no longer searching for the next teacher, the next story, the next truth. The lessons have stopped arriving like answers and started appearing like reflections. Everywhere, in everything. The trail takes a sharp turn around a rock face and drops into a narrow valley. At the bottom, you hear laughter and the clatter of nets. A fishing village clings to the shore of a pale blue inlet. Its boats bobbing gently like they too are meditating. The scent of salt and smoke fills the air. A group of villagers stand gathered at the edge of the dock, pointing at something in the water. You approach quietly. It floated. One whispers, awe in their voice. Another mutters, "That shouldn't be possible." You follow their gaze. Out on the surface of the water, drifting slowly with the tide, is a large rock. Not a small stone, not a hollow shell, a rock, solided, unmistakably dense. Yet there it is floating. You step closer. One of the villagers looks at you. "You're a traveler, right?" she asks. "You've seen things. Explain that." You don't answer. Not because you can't, but because explanation is no longer your instinct. The villagers murmur, unsure whether to celebrate, fear, or ignore the impossible thing before them. An old fisherman approaches, walking slowly, shoulders stooped by time. He doesn't speak. He doesn't even look surprised. He lights a pipe, takes a slow drag, then finally says, "Some things float when they're ready. The others fall silent." He turns to you. "You've seen something like this before, haven't you?" You nod. In a way, he studies your face. And what did you do then? I let it float. He smiles, not at you, but through you. Good. A child tugs at the old man's sleeve. But how does a rock float? The old man crouches to her level. Maybe it forgot it was supposed to sink. The child frowns. But that's not how rocks work. He nods. Exactly. The villagers slowly begin to disperse, their wonder dissolving into the quiet rhythm of daily life. But the rock remains, rocking gently in the tide like it belongs there, like it always did. You sit at the edge of the dock and watch it, not to figure it out, not to make sense of it, but simply to be with it. The sun lowers toward the horizon, the light shifts, the surface of the water catches fire, then fades into silver. You wonder, how much of what we believe to be truth is just repetition? How many of our limits are memorized? How often do we choose to sink because we're certain we're supposed to? The floating rock says nothing, but its presence says everything. Eventually, you rise. You walk past the fisherman who gives you a small nod. Not approval, not permission, just recognition. As if to say, yes, you've dropped enough weight now. You climb the hill behind the village. The path is soft, wide, unmarked. At the top, you look back. The rock is still floating. And you understand something, not with the mind, but with the breath, with the bones. Some truths don't need to be taught. Some transformations don't need witnesses. And some burdens float the moment you stop gripping them. Dusk gives way to twilight as you crest the final hill. The path narrows again, lined with lanterns, but this time they are unlit. Their paper skins flutter gently in the breeze, casting no glow, marking nothing. And yet you follow them. Ahead, the land flattens into a wide clearing surrounded by ancient trees. In the center stands a stone shrine, small and weathered, its shape simple, a square base, a narrow pillar, and atop it a fire bowl. No fire burns, not yet. You step closer, sensing that you've arrived at the end, not just of the path, but of something deeper. The bowl is filled with ash, cold, silent. A monk kneels beside it, face hidden beneath a hood. He does not stir as you approach, but somehow you know he's been waiting. He lifts a single match and strikes it against the stone. The flame is small, pale yellow, almost hesitant. He sets it in the bowl. It does not roar. It does not rage. It simply lives. A fire without heat. You feel its presence more than you see it. It doesn't warm your hands. It doesn't glow on your skin. But something inside you responds, as though a wick buried deep within your chest has finally caught. The monk speaks, his voice dry like leaves rustling across stone. Most fires consume, he says. This one reveals. You kneel beside him. What does it reveal? You ask. He gestures toward the flame. Only what is false. You stare into it. Nothing flickers. Nothing changes. And yet, something begins to fall away. Not from the world, from you. First, the stories. The ones you've whispered to yourself in the dark. The ones that said you were broken, late, unworthy. Then, the masks. The careful smiles. The reflexive apology. The need to be enough. Then, the expectations. That life must unfold a certain way. That peace must look like stillness. That Zen must mean escape. The fire does not devour these things. It doesn't destroy. It simply makes them transparent. You see through them. And then past them, what's left is small, quiet, unimpressive, but real. The monk removes his hood. His face is lined like driftwood, his eyes kind. You've arrived, he says. You look around. The clearing is bare. There are no gates, no statues, no altar, no offering bowl. We're, he smiles, at the place where there's nothing left to burn. You close your eyes. You breathe. You sit beside the fire, not for warmth, not to be mirrored, to be reminded, to remember that what you are is not what can be taken or improved or polished. It is what remains when everything else has been released. You sit until the night fully settles, until the last traces of your old self rise like mist and drift into the trees. The monk stands and walks into the forest, leaving you alone with the flame. It does not flicker, it does not fade, it simply burns, and you stay, not waiting, not arriving, just being. Now you rest. You've walked through fire and fog, tea and silence, laughter and loss. You've met masters who never claimed to be masters, and students who taught without knowing they were teaching. You've dropped arrows, floated stones, planted seeds in scorched earth. And somewhere along the way, you stopped seeking answers and began living the questions. Zen never shouted at you. It never pointed at the stars and called them names. It simply offered presence. Each moment asked nothing of you but attention, and in that attention, transformation quietly bloomed. You've tasted bitterness and found sweetness beneath it. You've held a cracked cup and realized it could still hold everything you needed. You've watched the moon ripple and return again and again. And now, you sit beside the fire that burns without heat, because you no longer need to be warmed. You've learned that clarity isn't always comfort. That peace doesn't always arrive in stillness. Sometimes, it's found in the gentle letting go of needing anything to change. You are not perfect. You are not broken. You are simply here, alive, aware, and enough. Let the world spin without your interference for a while. Let the wind pass without reaching to shape it. Let the fire burn in silence. Let your breath be your temple. Let this be your ending, which is, in truth, just another beginning.